host, Crissy.
If tonight were the final night of your life, how would you define success? Would it be your job title, your income, the awards you've won, the goals you've achieved? Or would it be something else entirely? I know my answer. Because at 16 years old, I almost didn't get the chance to answer that question. But the truth is, long before I was questioning success, I was questioning whether I was enough. I grew up in a single wide trailer with a single mom who was doing the best she could. And somewhere along the way, I started believing that successful people were somehow different than me. They were smarter and more talented. They definitely lived in bigger houses, and they had 2 parents. They were more confident, and they didn't question their worth every time they stepped into a room. I started to believe that success was something you earned by proving yourself. And if I'm being honest, there were moments when I questioned far more than my success. I questioned my worth. I questioned whether I belonged. There were moments when I wasn't even sure I deserved to take up space on this planet. And then at 16 years old, a split-second decision changed everything. I was driving with a friend, laughing, passionately arguing about why Limp Bizkit's song Break Stuff was the greatest angry teenager anthem ever written. I still stand by that to this day. My friend pulls the CD out and it slips from his hand and falls to the floor. I turn and look for a fraction of a second. My friend would later tell me what he remembers most about that night is the sound of my scream as the car slammed into the utility pole. The back seat erupted in flames, and my friend understandably wanted to get out of a burning car, so he opened the door and stepped out, not realizing the ground beneath us was pulsing with electricity. 13,000 volts of electricity surged through the car and my body. The paramedics arrived and quickly called for a medevac helicopter to airlift me to the Washington burn unit. There were excruciating 3rd-degree burns, surgeries, skin grafts, months of painful recovery. By all accounts, I should not be standing here today. But ultimately, what changed me wasn't the accident. It was the question the accident forced me to ask. Lying in a hospital bed, I wasn't thinking about my grades or accomplishments or whether I had proven myself. For the first time in my life, I stopped asking, am I enough? And I started asking, what actually matters? What does it mean to have a successful life? What does it mean to truly live? And that question changed everything. It took staring death in the face to realize I had never truly given myself permission to fully live. Because over the years, I have come to realize that most of us have success backwards. We spend our lives chasing achievement, titles, money, certainty, thinking that if we accomplish enough, we will finally feel successful. But what fascinates me is not how many people are afraid of dying. It's how many people are afraid of living, afraid to begin, afraid to fail, afraid to be seen before they feel ready. And fear, it's incredibly convincing. Fear doesn't usually destroy our lives all at once. It quietly shrinks them, whispering, don't start, don't ask, But I started noticing something. The people who built meaningful lives, they weren't waiting until they felt ready. They were simply willing to step into the arena anyway. And that's when I realized the real secret to success. Success doesn't belong to the fearless. Success belongs to the courageous. And it is important to know that courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding that fear doesn't get to make the decisions. Fear will always have a voice. It just doesn't get to have the microphone. What I didn't realize then was that courage was not going to be a single decision. It was going to become a way of living. A few years after my accident, I was robbed while backpacking in Costa Rica. And everything in me wanted to come home. Courage asked me to stay. When I found myself walking 500 miles across Spain on the Camino de Santiago, exhausted and unsure if I could make it another mile, courage asked me to take one more step. When I started a community for moms with no guarantee anyone would come, courage asked me to keep showing up. The circumstances changed, the lesson did not. Again and again, the most meaningful parts of my life waited on the other side of one courageous next step. You may take the risk and fall. You may start the thing and struggle. You may say yes and still feel scared the entire time. But courage gives you something fear never can. A life that belongs to you. A life you did not watch from the sidelines while waiting to feel ready. And that is my invitation to you. Because I am not unique. The same fear that showed up in my life shows up in yours. Maybe for you, courage looks like having the conversation, starting the business, walking into the room, or finally admitting that the dream you keep dismissing is still calling you for a reason. Fear will give you very convincing reasons to wait, but life does not wait. So the question is not, am I ready? The question is, what am I waiting for? Because at the end of our lives, we will not remember the achievements. We will remember the risks we took, the people we loved, the moments we fully showed up for the one life we have been given. Success is not found in playing it safe. Success is found in having the courage to fully live. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crissy. I love your energy, and coming from an acting and dancing point of view, I love your body language. I love how involved you just spoke with your whole body, which is something that I really admire. And a lot of people really kind of miss out with their speaking, because if they're speaking from their head up, it means that they're not as engaged. Their heart isn't engaged, their gut isn't engaged, their arms aren't engaged. So I really love that. I love the staring death in the face. So something that really tragic happened to you was turned around because you took that moment, staring death in the face, to find something new to share with us to change our lives. I love that. And I love that courage isn't a single decision. So well done.
Thank you.
And you look great in blue.
Thank you.
Crissy, that was amazing. Agree with your energy. As you were talking, I was thinking, wow, you could rock. I don't know if you've spoken in front of 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 30,000 people, but I could just imagine you just rocking a stage, any stage, an in-person stage, as a real motivational speaker and just getting the room to take action. And lucky I'm not a judge, but that was just classy. And what made it so good was all great stories have an external battle and an internal battle. The external is the car accident, the electricity, the being robbed in Costa Rica, but the internal struggles you had to face on deciding what it meant and what you're going to do about it. That you sold so well and you shared it so well, and that's what makes this story great, is how the character resolves the internal struggles of what's actually happening externally to them. And that's why the story was so powerful. So super well done for that.
Thank you.
Crissy, I loved your passion. I loved your vocal tonality, that you knew the places to let your voice be high and you knew the places to let your voice drop so that you could bring the audience in. One of my favorite lines that you said, fear will always have a voice, but it doesn't get the microphone. That is a powerful, powerful line. And I have to agree with Richmond. I can just see you on a stage just encouraging and inspiring people with that message, the truth, your story, your journey. Because the only time people wouldn't be inspired by your message is if they're sleeping. And so if they're awake, they're going to be inspired and encouraged. So well done. Keep that passion going every time you share your story, because that's really what draws us all in.
Thank you.
Great job. Great
Thank
job.
you.